Thank you very much, Mr. Pranav, right? Saurabh. Saurabh means sweet smelling, no? It's Professor Dheeraj and Prem and Professor Alka and friends. It's a pleasure to be here. I found a very special characteristic in JKLU. I'm carrying evidence of this. The program said that he will speak for 10 minutes and I will speak for 20. Suddenly he took his pen and made his 5 minutes and made me 25 minutes. तो हमने कहा डेलीगेशन की हद होती है हर चीज की. But here I am, and what I want to do is not to worry about 10, 15, 20, 25, but to share some thoughts with you, because the rest of the day will go in the detail. Startups, bootstrapping, how do you raise funds, how do you get it going, how do you set goals for yourself, and various important technicalities. And when we were driving here, two of your student colleagues, I don't see them here, came to accompany me. And like young people, they were very curious. So they asked me a whole range of questions which I wasn't used to answering. Like, what makes me me? I said, yaar, ye to, wo bhi Hindi mein pucha. So one of the questions was, sir, you're going to give a speech now. Have you prepared? I said, this is a double-edged question, you know. If I say, no, I just speak, then that sounds very casual. If I say, हाँ मेरे पास 10 पन्ने की है, so that sounds कि ये कितना prepare करके आता है. So I quickly write down one page so that I'm answering both sides. And I want to talk about 3 points. I'm very happy to be here, by the way, because I happen to be on the ministry's high-level committee in Atal Innovation Mission. And we designed this whole scheme of AIC and so on. And they've been telling me, आपको जाके देखना चाहिए. And now I can get a tick. I said, मैंने भी एक AIC देख के आया है. So मैं दोनों तरफ से एक तीर से काम करा लेता हूँ. And I'm very happy to see that something that we talked about conceptually is actually taking shape here. And so I'm very happy from both points of view. And I congratulate JKLU on the initiative of tying up with MHLC and setting up this, and I wish you good luck. You know, it's a very Indian tradition. I'm sure Mr. Gregory Dunn has never seen anywhere in his life in China, Uzbekistan, Russia, America, people lighting lamps and putting flowers. Have you? Huh? It's a very special and Indian thing. And whether we are a godly people or not is a separate matter. It's not a subject for discussion. But we will rarely have a function where we will not have some such symbolism. And this is what I mean by culture. Culture, you take it for granted that that must be done. And if it is not done, then you feel something is amiss. So there's a very much part. India is the only country in the world, as far as I'm aware, I've also traveled to 80, 85 countries so far, where if somebody is opening a new factory or a shop or a authorized dealership, they will have some ceremony, breaking a coconut, lighting a lamp, putting flowers. And whether we are religious people or not, I don't know. But there is some symbolism attached to starting everything new. And by the way, Gregory, for your benefit, you can go from Kashmir to Trivandrum. The same God with an elephant head will appear. His blessings will be invoked in different languages. He is a multilingual person. So you can say it in Sanskrit or Malayalam, it doesn't matter. But he will be invoked. So this is a very good thing. We've been thoughtful to the point that we knew we'll have to take off our shoes if we have to go to light the lamp. So we delegated it to the lady for whom it's much easier. So you see how thoughtful we are in these matters. Be thoughtful. So you must be thoughtful when you do startups also. It is not a passport to riches. It is actually a passport to trouble. I don't want to dissuade you, don't get me wrong. But there's nothing in life you can achieve without going through the troubles that go with it. You can't become a parent if you don't clean the crap and the child and all the things that happen. You can't be a successful professor if you don't go through the pains of the student. So, startups is actually a responsibility, it's not a privilege. And so, I want to make 3 points. I've written a book called Wisdom for Startups from Grown-ups. But I don't want to talk about the book because I may take the whole day and y'all will not do the work y'all have assembled here for. But I do feel very strongly about 3 points which you don't think about when you're a startup. Startups somehow think that they are very talented people. Their model is Steve Jobs, nowadays Elon Musk also. But the world is not, the world is impacted and influenced by geniuses, but it is run by ordinary people like you and me. And none of us is a genius. And you have to understand that while your desire may be to wear a turtleneck and die at the age of 45 with 3 wives who don't acknowledge you, that's not the hallmark of an entrepreneur or dropping out of college for that matter. Somehow you see Elizabeth Holmes in that, what is that startup called? She's now in jail. Theranos. Uh, we create the physical symbolisms that go with startups. And young people tend to emulate those things. Not wrong. If I want to be a cricketer, I'd like to walk like Sunil Gavaskar or Sachin Tendulkar. So we all do that. But there are some fundamental principles. And those are the 3 I would like to. There are many, but I will keep myself to 3. First of all, why are you doing a startup? What in management language, you got Professor Otanu here. He will take a lecture on strategy and he will tell you for 1.5 hours what I'll tell you in 1.5 minutes. What is your purpose? Irada kya hai? Why do you want to do it? Is it a way of earning a living? Is it a way to express yourself? Is it a way to give an outlet for something in your head which is bothering you? Or is it the style of the times that everybody is doing it, I must also do it? When I was your age, I'm talking of the younger people here, if I went into startups, nobody will give his daughter in marriage to me. Now they queue up to give their daughter in marriage to you. What has changed? It's a long time, I agree. But it is not 500 years, it's 50 years. Startups have become, it's got the zing, it's got a pizzazz about it. And many young people are attracted for that reason. But there must be something deeper. It may not hit you on the day one, but it's something to think about. I think startups, the real good startups, I categorize those that are doing it for style and those that are doing it because there is an inner urge to do something. And I'm talking about those. It's a creative expression of an inner urge. I'm really obsessed with the fact that I can't get a hotel to stay in at short notice, and I think of some mumbo jumbo which results in Airbnb. I'm really obsessed with the fact, and those stories are all told, they're all available, that I can't get a car when I want to without owning one and keeping it idle for 90% of the time. So I invent Uber and so on and so forth. But the point I want to illustrate is not Uber and Airbnb, because those are, you can take individual cases and keep talking about them for a long time. But I want to emphasize this point. It's a creative expression of a human urge. So Mr. Salman Khan, not the muscular man who runs over animals, but the other guy who teaches school education. Huh? Sorry? Khan Academy. He says, why should poor people have such a tough time learning normal things? And so he starts Khan Academy. So these are all examples of the human urge to give a creative expression. there is one other common thing that all human beings have, which is they want to give a creative expression to procreating. Now, whether you marry or break the Uttarakhand rules by living together, producing next generation and replicating is another form of the human urge for creative expression. And I make a point of this because the moment you put biology into it, startups, and not just creativity for the sake of it, you start to see angles which you may not have otherwise seen. For example, it doesn't matter whether you're from a family of bootleggers or a family of industrialists or a family of academics. In every family, in every language, in every religion, in every part of the world, when the next generation comes, you wish it long life. Dirga Ayush Bhava. And that has many, many ways of expressing it. You're not expecting that child to become 75 kilos at the age of 10. Why would you want your startup to become a unicorn at the age of 5? It goes against the laws of nature. If it becomes, that's fine. So if Amitabh Bachchan, tall man, marries a short girl called Jaya Bhadri and they produce one Abhishek Bachchan, that's not because they fed him so much that he should become as tall. But it happened. It's the genetic, the natural part. Startups must grow naturally, not artificially. This fixation that I must get to a valuation is something that I would caution you against because it is going against the laws of nature. Though you'd love to be seen on the front page of Economic Times advising Nirmala Sitharaman on how to run this country when your own startup is making losses. That's a separate matter. That's your desire to be. Please remember that there are two fundamental human urges that you see in the human desire to procreate. You don't see it in animals. You see it in human beings only. A, live long. B, have a better life than me. My father was very proud that his retirement salary was equal to my starting salary. I am very proud that my retirement salary, his pension is based on a salary which my son more or less started with. I feel this is a good sign. It's not a bad sign. And if every family can have that, all of us will be called to the Lord happily at the right time whenever it comes. So, long and better life for the next generation is a fundamental human urge. Remember this in designing whatever you're doing for your startup. And to do this, I'm very proud of being a middle class family. I suspect most people here would agree with me. None of us has 5 security guards in front and 5 behind. And even if I'm offered for free, I'd say thank you. I'm happy the way I am. When you're born into a middle class family, you hit the realities of life soon. You learn to go to school on your own. You don't have nannies teaching you. You learn to take a bus and get to college. And many, many, many things. You learn to take failure just like you take success, desire success. And this comes out of two things that middle class families, without planning, they impart to you. I mean, there's no master plan. There's no case study and a strategy development for this in any family. But it is there in your family somewhere. And you realize it because as you grow older, like some of us sitting on the stage, we think and say, Daddy did this for me, Mummy did this for me, grandfather did this for me. It has some value. What is that? Number one, they impart you values. I don't think I've attended any 101 on values. Yes, we had some subject in school called moral science for 2-3 years. But that's not what values meant. Values meant my grandmother sitting me on her lap and telling me why we celebrate Deepavali. Frankly, I've forgotten what my grandmother told me. That doesn't matter. But if Deepavali is coming, something Nice is going to happen. That stayed in my head. And I have imparted that to my children. And you have done the same thing, those of you who have families and those of you who will have families in the future. Imparting values means teaching the lessons of sustainability, humanity, and enlightenment. Three things. You may do it in Punjabi language, in English language, in German language, even in Russian language. I'm saying even, not because I disregard Russians, but I'm saying in any language in the world. But that's what grandparents do. Now, startups also have a father and a grandfather because startups must be treated as human beings, not as vehicles. It's not the next Maruti car you bought. It is something far more important. Please associate life with your startup. And that means imparting values. Now, you can't be a $22 billion valued Baiju whose bloody accounts are not in place. And there are many others, I don't want to point them out lest I offend in somebody inadvertently. But I can't understand somebody who's making losses for 20 years. Now, once in a while, you'll find an aberration. So somebody will say Amazon. I say, but everybody leads his life thinking he's an Einstein. Then there'll be no progress in science. Science progresses because ordinary people like Dheeraj and myself do ordinary things and make small little advances. So remember that imparting values, which in startup terms means having good governance, keeping clean accounts, paying people on time, not using provident fund deductions for working capital, and various things which startups are prone to doing. And I have talked to startups. By the way, if you think I worked only in Tata, I've had experience of 6, 7 startups. And don't want to generalize. The amount of innocence and stupidity that startups show is unimaginable. They think creativity will get them because they got this idea. Yes, without that creativity, you won't move. But don't think it's the beginning of the end of the world. So, the second thing that your middle class values teach you in your family is create value. बेटा ऐसा करते हैं ऐसा नहीं करते हैं ये सही है ये सही नहीं है You may not accept your grandfather's advice when you're older because times are changing, but do something useful for other people is a value that's important to you without preaching to you. दूसरों की भलाई करो मंदिर में जाओ ये करो वो करो etc. There is this equivalent in governance also. Swami Vivekananda went to Chicago in 1893 and he was addressing American businessmen. And after several lectures, he was a mesmerizing speaker. The American businessman told him, and this all recorded, huh? I'm not making up these stories. I do make up some stories, but not all. They said, Swamiji, you're saying things that are going over our head. Can you tell us in simple ways? We are small businessmen, traders in the Chicago, Illinois area. How we should run our business? Aarohan, 1893. And this is what Swamiji said. He said, you have to do only 4 things. Whether you're running a shop or a steel factory. Number 1, be self-aware. Your enemy is not your competitor, your colleague. Your enemy is yourself. Now, behind each of these, you can write 20 books. And it's not my specialty, so I will stop at saying create, be self-aware. Second, he said protect the resources that help you to do your business. So they said, what are the resources? And in 1893, he said air, water, soil, and people. We call it ESG. And then you elect a Trump who says, forget about it. But Swamiji said it without using the word ESG. He says this is basic Eastern philosophy. And actually it makes sense. I don't think I have to convince any of you that protect the air, the water and the soil and the people. But very few people, entrepreneurs, do it. Why entrepreneurs? Even big people. You can go to big companies and they also don't do it. So you say to look after the people, appoint one Prem Kumar. I can mistreat them, but he will set it right. You call them HR. You want to screw up the air, the soil, the water, say ESG, head, sustainability. Then you go ahead and do whatever you want to. Doesn't work. Cannot be the way to do things. So I have answered the first part of my 3 points. Think deeply about why there's a startup. When you have a little few moments, I know your day will go just getting the startup started up, but give some thought to this. The second point I want to make is this apparent dilemma I'm seeing amongst many young people. Startups are all about creativity or discipline. When I talk to young people, they say, Sir, you worked in Hindustan Unilever, TATA, everything is process, formula, bureaucratic. We are startups. As though हम कोई अलग जात के हैं और हमारा रिवाज अलग है. And then you go and talk to the big companies, they will also tell you, हमारा बहुत procedure हो गया है. यहाँ creativity हम बढ़ाना चाहते हैं. So there are two worlds, two planets, where different conversations are taking place. And I have been to both the planets. Ratan Tata called me one day and said, can you see how to make Tatas more creative? And I go to the startups, they say, can you tell us how to be more organized? So I have thought of a metaphor of creativity and discipline. It is not creativity or discipline. It's how do you combine creativity and discipline. I'm not going to say you need one or not the other. And let me do this through a metaphor because it speaks for itself. How many of you studied emulsion chemistry? Chemistry, forget about emulsion chemistry. हाथ उठाओ यार जोर से बोला केमिस्ट्री पढ़ा है तो प्राइड की बात है जोर से बोला I don't know if you remember what's an emulsion. An emulsion is an admixture of two products of different phases which are combined together into one. One is in the outer phase and one is in the inner phase. So if I take egg and oil, mix them up, where the oil is on the outer phase, I call it butter. If I mix them up in such a way, and you use emulsifiers and so on for this, where the water is in the outer phase, it's called mayonnaise. Now you will not eat mayonnaise in the place of butter, neither will you eat butter in the place of mayonnaise. I've never seen anybody put butter on a salad or mayonnaise in a sandwich. Mayonnaise in a sandwich I've seen. Only Americans do that, but sorry about that. uh, but here, the same ingredients, they produce completely different usages. That's the point I'm trying to illustrate. Now I take the metaphor of music. You've all either seen in real life or in movies what a Western classical music is like. Everybody is sitting quiet as though it's a condolence meeting going on. And one by one, 100 people walk onto the stage looking as though the condolence meeting is at its deepest moment. Serious. They go and sit down at their place. They got a score sheet in front of them and they don't look up or down. They are checking their instruments. The audience is not supposed to clap or do anything. You're also sitting as though the departed soul is being mourned. Until a magical moment. Zubin Mehta comes, pantada! He comes into what looks like dandas to you, right? And the maestro is welcomed with a great cheer, and the music begins. And you're not supposed to clap when you feel like, huh? You can't say wah wah in between. There are specific moments when you're supposed to clap. Even if you appreciated it half an hour ago, like the proverbial joke of the Sardarji, sorry, there's a Sardarji somewhere here, but the proverbial joke of the Sardarji that he's laughing at his own joke. Is it creative? Of course. You can't say playing Beethoven's Eighth Symphony is not creative. Is it disciplined? Oh my God. 100 people at a condolence meeting. You can't be more disciplined than that. They're all well dressed, huh? Bow tie and so on. Now you look at an Indian classical music. One Lal Gudi will come with his dhoti tied up loosely and he'll welcome and everybody will cheer it. Or Ustad Zakir Hussain. 2, 3 people will follow. One person has a very important role, but nobody recognizes it, called Tanpura. Because without the Tanpura, everybody will be out of place. But then one will be a Mridangam or a Tabla or whatever. Those 4 people sit down, not one of them has a score sheet in front of him. Nowadays, they carry a mobile phone. But otherwise, even that wasn't there 25 years ago. And they seem to be talking to each other. They're looking at each other. They're not looking at a score sheet. They're enjoying. So he will take tan 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 and they'll tan 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 tan. Have you all seen this? Is there creativity? Enormous creativity. Do you appreciate the creativity when you feel like in an Indian classical music you just break into a cheer whenever you feel like? Once more, Dubara. Is there discipline? Not that you can see. But do you think they are coming and performing without discipline? God knows how many hours of riyaz they have done individually and severally. In both cases, like mayonnaise and butter, the ingredients are the same: oil and water. In the case of the Western classical music, the outer layer is discipline. The inner layer is creativity. In the case of the Indian classical music, the outer layer is creativity, inner layer is discipline. They both will produce, if you're a music lover, that wah-wah feeling in you, but in very different ways. And that's what large companies and small companies are about. The ingredients should be similar. It is just that the emulsion is different. And that you're not of a different jat, that you can not write accounts, you don't have to do corporate governance, you don't have to think about these things. I'd like to close by talking about my third point, which is nobody trains you. I shouldn't say nobody. Very recent only, some people have tried to train you to be a startup. To be a grown-up, you're well trained. You get 2-year MBA program, HSM, all these things that happen. You say you're an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, you're supposed to know a lot about management. In reality, you don't, but you give that impression. When you get into the workplace, you realize that what you've learned is not real life. But that's a separate matter. Let's not go there. But startups, I just get up in the morning, I started up. I dropped out of college. I raised $25 billion in 6 months. It sounds like a fairy tale. It's as real as Devanand running around Wahida Rahman and singing a song, and you think you can do this to every girl in your college. It's nuts. Sorry, you'll all have these youthful periods of romance, but don't get carried away with it. You learn in startups by making the mistakes. Learnability is the biggest missing virtue in all forms of leadership in the world. I can tell you, if I have to sit down and tell you all the mistakes I have made and what I learned from it, you'll be sitting here for a whole seminar. And I think each of us can say the same thing. Silly mistakes, stupid things. But only you know. The only other person who knows is my wife. She knows how silly and stupid I have been. But she keeps the izzat and she doesn't talk about it. So, first mistake for modern startups: don't chase valuation. It is not a goal. It is not important. Chase value. And value and valuation are not the same. People who create deep, long learning value don't create valuation necessarily in a short time. They have different time cycles, but chase value. Second, don't think that a lot of profit or a lot of loss nowadays in startups is good. That's nuts. It's like saying Newton and the laws of motion and gravity are all nonsense. Galileo and Newton, I'll forget about it. Don't try to do that. That's not the way it works. When I say this, especially after I wrote the book and young people would ask me to come and talk to them, they say, but sir, what's wrong with profit? I said, nothing is wrong with profit. You must have profit. But profit is like oxygen. Do you need oxygen to live? Yeah, we need it. Where do you get your oxygen from? I breathe the air. How much oxygen do you get in the air? 18, 19%. If you're in Bombay, even less. Or Delhi, even less. What's the rest of it? Other gases, nitrogen, so on, and then they come out as carbon dioxide. Is it possible to have too much oxygen? Yes. If I feed you pure 100% oxygen from the cylinder, you'll be gone. You'll be dead. Only in an emergency, a doctor who understands how much oxygen should be given, he'll give you an oxygen cylinder. You don't just have oxygen for that. Why do you think you need too much profit? Too much profit kills. Too much loss kills. Don't break the laws of nature. So that's the second thing. And the third and the last point, and with that, I will have discharged my duty. So I'm trying to share practical things that are used to you. Think of people first as your resource for starting up. People think technology is the first thing. You know, I can do this, I can do that. I use artificial intelligence, I give up my natural intelligence, I'll be okay. There is something called NI, which nobody gets a PhD for, except our maker. Don't give it up. Follow AI. It's another tool. For God's sake, when I started my career, people said computers will take away all the jobs. There'll be nobody, everybody sitting around, swatting flies. Nonsense. I've been there for 55 years. Computers have helped, but they've created a whole new set of jobs, but they haven't taken away everybody's jobs. Yes, some jobs have gone. You go to Pune, those guys who would come and catch you from the compartment to take away your suitcase, red kurta, coolies, they don't exist because everybody got a wheeled suitcase. So jobs will change. So hire people. We tend to hire people who have unique vision, personal goals. But in a startup, I'll say hire people with shared goals. It's far more important than having 7, 10 geniuses will not make a great cricket team. But 7 people who think together make a good cricket team. So may I thank you for inviting me and thank you for your patience in listening to him. Although I call myself an old fogey, I don't think I'm an old fogey. I think startups are the platform on which this nation or any nation will grow. So have no mistake about their role. It is just like when the next child is born in the family, you say, ye bhavishya hai. This is the future. And there, don't get it wrong. But as a patriarch in the family, you feel that you can tell your children, grandchildren, or nephews, why when you raise your family, think of some of these points. And I've come here as a sort of grandfather, sharing with my own family members that think of some of these things. They will not be irrelevant, even if they don't occupy, while you get engaged for the rest of the day into the nitty-gritty of what is going to happen. Thank you. Thank you very much.